Hey kids, it's August 1st, Saturday. We had some of our closest friends over today. We barbecued, and you spent a good part of the day playing in the inflatable swimming pool. It was a very good day. And now the younger one of you is beginning to properly play with the older one too, which gives us so many little moments to watch, to laugh at, to photograph, to remember. One of my favorite things about watching you grow is discovering who you are before the world has had too much time to tell you who you should be. Before school, before social expectations, before ideas about what boys or girls are supposed to like, before people begin attaching labels to you, you just behave, explore, react, and little pieces of your character appear naturally. The younger one of you is still a baby as I record this. You cannot speak yet. You cannot explain your thoughts. You cannot tell us why you do the things you do. But there is one tiny habit I have noticed in you that I really like. Whenever someone offers you something unfamiliar, a new toy, a spoonful of food, or an object you have never seen before, you almost never accept it immediately. But you also almost never reject it immediately. Instead, you pause, you look. Sometimes you touch it, sometimes you taste it. Perhaps you move your head slightly and examine it from another angle. Then you decide. The whole process may last only 1 or 2 seconds, but I find it beautiful. Because adults often stop doing this. We begin deciding before we have actually looked. Someone mentions a restaurant and we say, I won't like that place. We see a book and think, that's not for me. Someone introduces an idea and we reject it before they finish explaining it. A person seems a little different, so we decide what kind of person they must be. An opportunity appears, and our first thought is, that would never work. We create conclusions before collecting much evidence. And I'm certainly not excluding myself from this. We all do it. Our brains are designed to make quick judgments. Often that is useful. You cannot carefully analyze every single decision for half an hour. You need instincts, patterns, experience, shortcuts. But the first impression itself is not necessarily the problem. The problem begins when we immediately mistake that first impression for the truth. We think, I feel this way, therefore this must be how it is. That little pause you take reminds me of something we have spoken about many times. Between what happens and how we respond, there is a small space, sometimes only a second, but that second matters. It gives the judge time to enter the room before the gator makes every decision. The younger one of you obviously knows nothing about any of that. You are not thinking about psychology, or cognitive biases, or philosophy. You simply look. You gather a little information, then decide. Perhaps I am reading far too much into normal baby behavior. You may grow out of it completely, but I hope you don't. Because curiosity is a powerful quality. And curiosity does not mean believing everything. It does not mean saying yes to every idea. It does not mean being naive. It simply means giving reality a fair chance before your assumptions close the door. There is a huge difference between saying no and saying, I don't know yet. I don't know yet creates space. Space to ask a question, space to listen, space to collect evidence, space to change your mind. And changing your mind when the evidence changes is not weakness, it is intelligence. As you grow older, people will offer you many things: ideas, books, jobs, friendships, places to travel, ways of living, political opinions, religious ideas, business opportunities, advice, dreams. Some will be good for you, some will be terrible. Most will probably fall somewhere in between. You should absolutely learn how to say no. We will talk about boundaries many times. But before you say yes or no, especially when the decision matters, Try to understand what you are actually deciding about. Ask questions, listen, investigate. Try something small when appropriate, then decide. This is particularly important when dealing with people. We judge people remarkably quickly. How they dress, how they speak, their accent, their job, where they come from, their education. One awkward conversation, one strange opinion, and suddenly we think we understand them. But people are complicated, far more complicated than our first impressions. Someone who seems arrogant may simply be nervous. Someone who appears quiet may have an enormous inner world. Someone who disagrees with you may have information you do not. Someone you initially dislike may eventually become one of the most important people in your life. And of course, sometimes your first impression will be completely right. Curiosity does not require you to ignore your instincts. It simply asks you not to treat them as unquestionable facts. The same applies to ideas. One of the most valuable intellectual habits you can develop is trying to understand an argument before deciding whether you agree with it. Not preparing your response while the other person is still speaking. Not listening only for the weakest sentence you can attack. Actually asking, what are they really trying to say? What evidence are they using? Why might a reasonable person believe this? That requires something we have discussed before: intellectual humility. The ability to say, I may be wrong, or I don't understand enough yet. Those can be uncomfortable sentences, especially when you become knowledgeable. The more expertise you develop, the easier it becomes to assume that you already understand. That is why we talked about Shoshin, the beginner's mind. Keep some part of yourselves open. You do not need to pretend you know nothing. Experience matters, knowledge matters, but leave enough room for surprise. There is another benefit to this little pause. It makes your decisions more deliberate. Suppose someone offers you a new opportunity at work. Your immediate reaction may be excitement. Yes, absolutely. Pause. What would this require? What would you give up? Does it fit your values? Would it help you earn, learn, or enjoy the journey? Or perhaps your first response is fear. No, I could never do that. Pause again. Why not? Is the opportunity genuinely wrong for you? Or are you simply uncomfortable because it is unfamiliar? The pause works in both directions. Before saying yes, pause. Before saying no, pause. Not forever. You cannot spend your life analyzing every possibility, but long enough to let your judgment become slightly better informed. Sometimes that pause will confirm your first instinct. You look carefully and say, yes, I was right. This is not for me. Perfect. Other times, life will surprise you. The food you expected to dislike becomes your favorite. The person you misunderstood becomes your friend. The job you assumed was impossible turns into a great opportunity. The book you almost ignored changes the way you think. You do not need to chase surprises. Just don't close the door before they have a chance to knock. I think children do this naturally because the world is still new. You haven't built thousands of categories yet. You don't know what is supposed to be boring, or uncool, or too difficult. You simply explore. Then slowly, as we grow older, we create more rules. This is who I am. This is what people like me do. I don't enjoy things like that. I'm not good at this. And eventually, the rules we created to understand ourselves begin limiting what we are willing to discover. So please keep a little uncertainty alive. Not the kind that paralyzes you, the kind that keeps you curious. When you catch yourselves making an immediate judgment, perhaps simply ask, how do I know? Maybe you know very well. Maybe experience has taught you something important. But sometimes you will realize, I actually don't know. I just assumed. That is a valuable discovery. And it applies to how you see yourselves too. Do not reject your own possibilities too quickly. Maybe you think you are bad at mathematics because you struggled with it once. Maybe you believe you are shy because someone called you shy when you were 7. Maybe you believe you are not creative because your creativity does not look like someone else's. Pause, observe, test the assumption. Give yourselves the same fair chance you would give that unfamiliar spoonful of food. Perhaps you really don't enjoy it. Fine. Perhaps it truly does not suit you. Also fine. But decide with your eyes open. Not because an old label decided for you years ago. So maybe the younger one of you is teaching me something without knowing it. Before saying yes, pause. Before saying no, pause. Look, listen. Touch the idea, metaphorically speaking. Taste it when appropriate. Understand a little more. Then choose. Curiosity does not mean accepting everything. It means giving reality a chance to speak before your assumptions do. And perhaps the wisest sentence you can carry into almost any unfamiliar situation is, I don't know yet. Not forever, just yet. Then learn enough to decide. Sometimes you will discover that your first instinct was exactly right, and sometimes you will discover something much better than what you expected. Either way, you will have made the decision with your eyes open rather than closed. And do not ever forget, I love you both very, very much.